In the quiet hills of Canaan, under the wide open skies where shepherds watched their flocks and fathers taught their sons about the God of Abraham, a young man named Joseph was born. He was the son of Jacob, the beloved son of his old age, and, from the moment Joseph opened his eyes to the world, it was clear that he was different. He carried dreams, vivid, strange dreams. Dreams that stirred something deep in his spirit. Dreams that spoke of greatness. In one dream, sheaves of grain bowed before him. In another, the sun, moon, and 11 stars bowed down to him. Joseph didn't understand them fully. How could he? But he believed they meant something, that God was speaking, that something was coming. And Joseph, full of innocence and youthful wonder, shared these dreams with his family. But not everyone was happy to hear them. His brothers, older, stronger, hardened by years in the fields, looked at Joseph with narrowed eyes. They already despised the robe their father had given him, a long, beautiful coat of many colors, a symbol of favoritism they could no longer ignore. Every stitch of that robe whispered, "He is loved more than you." And now this talk of dreams and dominion. Their jealousy boiled into hatred. They could not even speak a kind word to him. But Joseph, 17 and full of hope, didn't see the danger in their hearts. He couldn't imagine the pain that was about to unfold. One day, Jacob sent Joseph out to check on his brothers who were tending flocks far from home. He walked across dry fields and rocky paths, searching, calling. When he finally found them, near Dothan, they saw him coming from a distance, the glimmer of his colorful robe giving him away. And they said, "Here comes that dreamer." Those words, laced with sarcasm and rage. They didn't just want to stop the dreams, they wanted to destroy the dreamer. "Let's kill him," one said. "Throw him into a pit. Say a wild animal devoured him. Then we'll see what comes of his dreams." But Reuben, the oldest, felt a flicker of mercy. "Don't shed blood," he said. "Throw him into this empty cistern in the wilderness, but don't harm him." Reuben secretly planned to come back later and rescue Joseph. But the others didn't care about rescue. They stripped Joseph of his robe, the symbol of his father's love, and threw him down into a pit, a dry, dark, hopeless hole. Alone, terrified, betrayed. He cried out, but they didn't listen. And as Joseph sat in that pit, wounded and trembling, he couldn't know what was coming. He didn't know that this pain, this betrayal, would become the first step in God's greater plan. Sometimes, when life throws us into pits of despair, we can't see God working. We don't feel his hand. We question the promises, the dreams. But God doesn't abandon the pit. He's already moving behind the scenes. And for Joseph, the story was just beginning. The sun was high above the desert when Joseph's brothers saw a caravan approaching. Ishmaelite traders, their camels loaded with spices, heading toward Egypt. And in that moment, Judah, one of the brothers, had a different idea. "Why kill him?" he said. "Let's sell him. He's our own flesh and blood, but we can profit from him." And so, they pulled their own brother from the pit, not to save him, but to sell him for 20 pieces of silver. Joseph's life was no longer his own. Dragged away in chains, watching his homeland disappear behind him, Joseph became a slave in a foreign land. He was only a teenager, far from his father, far from home, far from the dreams God had given him, but not far from God. Because even in Egypt, even in the house of Potiphar, one of Pharaoh's officials, God was still working. Joseph served faithfully. He didn't let bitterness poison his heart. He didn't allow pain to define his identity. He worked with integrity, and God blessed everything he did. Potiphar noticed, and soon Joseph was put in charge of his entire household. The boy who had once been thrown into a pit was now running the home of an Egyptian official. But when favor rises, so does opposition. Potiphar's wife saw that Joseph was handsome, and day after day she tried to seduce him. "Come lie with me," she whispered. Joseph refused. How could I do such a wicked thing and sin against God? He answered. This wasn't just about morals. This was about faith. Even when no one was watching, even when everything had already gone wrong, Joseph clung to his integrity, to his God. But she was persistent. And one day, when no one else was in the house, she grabbed his cloak and tried again. Joseph fled, leaving the cloak behind, and ran from the temptation. She was humiliated, angry. So she lied. She told her husband that Joseph had tried to assault her. She showed him the cloak, the second robe in Joseph's life to be used against him. And just like that, Joseph was thrown into prison. He had done nothing wrong. He had been faithful, pure, honest, and still, the chains returned, the darkness returned. Sometimes it seems like doing the right thing doesn't pay off. Like obedience leads not to promotion, but to prison. But even there, even in that dark, forgotten place, God was still with Joseph. The prison warden saw the same thing Potiphar had seen: excellence, integrity, divine favor. And soon, Joseph was placed in charge of the other prisoners. Years passed, and one day, two of Pharaoh's officials, his chief cupbearer and baker, were thrown into the prison. Each had a troubling dream, and Joseph, guided by God, interpreted them. One would be restored, the other would be executed, and Joseph's words came true. To the cupbearer, the one who would live, Joseph said, "When you are restored, remember me. Tell Pharaoh about me. Get me out of this place." But the cupbearer forgot. Joseph stayed in prison, forgotten by man, but not forgotten by God. The silence of God is never the absence of God. Even in delay, He is preparing, aligning, moving. The story wasn't over, it was about to rise. 2 more years passed. Then, one night, Pharaoh himself had 2 dreams. Strange, disturbing, filled with symbols no one could explain. Egypt's magicians and wise men were helpless. That's when the cupbearer finally remembered. There was a Hebrew in prison, he said. He interpreted my dream, and it came true. Pharaoh summoned Joseph. From the prison to the palace in a single day. Joseph shaved, changed clothes, and stood before the most powerful man in the world. Pharaoh said, "I heard you can interpret dreams." Joseph didn't take the credit. "I cannot," he said, "but God can." And then Joseph listened. 7 fat cows eaten by 7 thin ones. 7 healthy heads of grain swallowed by 7 scorched ones. God revealed the meaning. 7 years of abundance, followed by 7 years of severe famine. Joseph didn't stop at interpretation. He offered a plan: store food during the abundance, prepare for the famine. Pharaoh saw the wisdom, the clarity, the Spirit of God in him, and in a single breathtaking moment, Joseph was promoted to second in command over all of Egypt. The high prisoner became a prince. He was 30 years old. For 7 years, Joseph oversaw the storage of grain. He traveled, managed, built. And then the famine came. Just as God had said. People came from everywhere to buy food, including Canaan, including his brothers. They didn't recognize him. He spoke Egyptian, wore royal clothes, and held power over life and death. But Joseph recognized them, and he wept. He tested them, not out of cruelty, but to see if their hearts had changed. He eventually revealed himself. "I am Joseph," he said, trembling. "Is my father still alive?" His brothers were terrified. The one they sold now held their fate. But Joseph didn't seek revenge. He had learned something in the pit, in slavery, in prison, in power. He looked at them and said words that echo through generations. "You intended to harm me, but God meant it for good, to save many lives." That is the heart of Joseph's story. When everything goes wrong, when the dream dies, when the pit swallows you and prison chains hold you captive, God is still working. His timing is not our timing, but His plan is better than ours. What men, mean for evil, God can use for glory. Joseph's story isn't just history, it's prophecy. It's a reminder, a light for anyone walking through betrayal, injustice, silence. You are not forgotten. God is still writing, and the end will be better than the beginning. Hold on, the palace is coming. If this story touched your heart, don't keep it to yourself. Subscribe for more powerful Bible stories that remind us, even when everything goes wrong, God is still working. Share this video with someone who needs hope today. And in the comments, tell us, when did God turn your pain into purpose? Let your story take root, right here, with Bible Roots, faith, stories, and hope.